The main distinguishing feature of a destructive pendulum is that it aggressively seeks to destroy other pendulums in order to gain followers to its side. To do this, it constantly pits its followers against strangers. We are like this, and they are different, bad. The adherents involved in this struggle go astray and head toward false goals, which they mistakenly perceive as their own. This shows the destructiveness of pendulums. Fighting against other people's followers is fruitless and leads to the destruction of the lives of followers, both our own and those of others. Let us take the extreme manifestation of the battle for adherence, war. To convince its followers to go to war, the pendulum presents arguments appropriate for a particular historical era. The most primitive method that has been used before is simply to order others to take away what belongs to them. As society became more civilized, the arguments took on a more refined form. One nation declares itself superior while others have flaws. The good purpose is to bring these underdeveloped peoples to a higher level and, if they resist, to use force. Well, modern concepts of war look like this. There is a beehive hanging from a tree in the forest. Wild bees live there, get their honey, and raise their children. But then a pendulum approaches the nest and announces to its adherents, "These are wild bees. They are very dangerous, so they must be destroyed or at least the nest ruined. Don't believe me? Look." Then it starts poking at this nest with a stick. The bees fly out and start stinging the followers. And the pendulum triumphs. See how aggressive they are. We must destroy them. Regardless of the justifying slogans that hide wars and revolutions, they have the same essence. This is a battle of pendulums for their followers. The forms of battle may be different, but the only goal is to win as many followers as possible. Followers are a vital necessity for a pendulum. Without them, it will stop. So the battle of the pendulums is a natural and inevitable struggle for existence. After wars and revolutions, there are less aggressive but rather harsh forms of battle. For example, the struggle for sales markets, rivalry between political parties, competition in the economy, all kinds of marketing, advertising campaigns, ideological propaganda, etc. The environment for human existence is based on pendulums, so all spheres of activity are covered by competition. Rivalry takes place at all levels, from government disputes to competitions between club teams and individuals. The new, the unusual, the incomprehensible always has a hard time breaking through. Why is that? Is it really inertia of thought? The main reason is that the emergence of a newcomer who will win supporters to their side is not profitable. For the old pendulums, for example, internal combustion engines, which pollute the atmosphere of cities so much, could have been a thing of the past long ago. After all, many alternative and environmentally friendly engine models have been developed. However, this threatens the demise of the oil companies' pendulums, and they are still very strong. So they will not allow some inventors to simply leave the stage. It gets to the point where these monsters literally buy patents for new engine models and keep them secret, while declaring their low efficiency. Realizing their structure at the material level, pendulums strengthen their position with financial means, structures, equipment, and of course, human resources. At the top of the human pyramids are the pendulum's favorites. The favorites are leaders of all ranks, from small bosses to presidents of states. The favorite does not necessarily have to have particularly outstanding qualities. As a rule, followers whose parameters best fit the pendulum structure become favorites. It may seem to the favorite that he has achieved impressive results in his life solely through his personal merits. To some extent this is true, but most of the work of naming their favorites is done by the self-organizing structure of the pendulum. If the parameters of the favorite no longer meet the requirements of the system, they are mercilessly eliminated. The battle of the pendulums is destructive for their adherents because the adherents think they are doing the will of the pendulums and act according to their personal convictions. The personal conviction of adherents in most cases is captured by pendulums. As soon as a person tunes into the frequency of the pendulum, there is an interaction between them and the pendulum on an energetic level. The frequency of emission of the adherent's mental energy is fixed and maintained by the energy of the pendulum. There is a kind of capture, a feedback loop. The adherent radiates at the resonance frequency of the pendulum, which in turn also energizes the adherent a little to maintain the influence. At the level of material realization, we observe such interaction in the form of a familiar image. For example, the pendulum of a political party generates agitation, hooks an adherent, and gives them a boost of energy in the form of a feeling of righteousness, satisfaction, dignity, and meaning. The adherent feels that they have control over the situation. They can choose. In fact, it was they who were chosen and controlled. Outwardly, it appears to be the adherent's conviction that they are carrying out their will. However, this will is artificially and imperceptibly imposed on them by a pendulum. The adherent then enters the pendulum's information field, communicates with others like him on topics related to the pendulum, enters into an energetic connection, and thus fixes his frequency. Then the adherent's expectations can be deceived. Thoughts appear against the pendulum, and the radiation frequency falls outside the capture circuit. The grip strength varies depending on the degree of power of the pendulum. In some cases, the adherent is simply allowed to leave, while in others, such a heretic may be deprived of their freedom or their life. Frequency capture can be illustrated with the following illustrative example. You hum a tune to yourself, but at that moment you heard other loud music. Now, when you hear a different tune, it will be very difficult for you to continue playing the old tune. For the purposes of transurfing, it is not important how exactly the interaction between the pendulum and the adherent occurs at the energy level. We will explore this interaction using a simplified physical pendulum model and common human concepts. This is sufficient. No one will be able to explain in detail and accurately what and how it is really happening, because then the question will arise, what is meant by really? And so on, according to the infinity of the cognitive process. This is a thankless occupation. Well, okay, the head is not a trash can. We should be glad that we can still understand something. In the next installment, we will talk about how pendulums manipulate their followers.